Reverend Bernice Powell Jackson. I serve as the president of the World Council of Churches for North America. Basically today I talked about 5 different points, 5 different ways that we African Americans, church folks, can get involved with what's going on in Palestine. And the first one is to start by educating ourselves about what's really going on, because the media does not tell us what's really going on. We only get a very small part of the story, and so we've got to educate ourselves. We've got to do some re-evaluation of our theology, because a lot of times we read the current events of what's happening in Palestine and Israel through the lens of the Old Testament, not even understanding what the words were about in the Old Testament. So we've got to do some re-theologizing also. Then thirdly, we need to go visit the Holy Land and see for ourselves, but not just go to the holy sites, which are wonderful and very inspiring, but to really spend some time with the people, the Palestinian Christians. Many people don't even know that there are Christians who are Palestinians, and so we need to find out what their struggles are. Then we need to begin to participate in divestment movements, in buying fair trade products that are like olive oil that's produced by Palestinians. So there are a number of things we can do. So that was kind of the thrust of what I was trying to say.
What do you think that sort of prohibits the black church from being more involved? We often hear about Jewish being the chosen people. So talk about that and how we navigate that space and still seek justice.
Yeah, the chosen people concept is part of that re-theologizing I was talking about. I think that some of it has to do with that learning, that unlearning some of what we have learned about what the chosen people really is all about and what the land is all about. And we have to separate the story of Jews from the story of Zionism, which are 2 different entities, and we don't always understand that. And I think Dr. Wright was he started us off really talking about that, and I think that's really important for us to do. I think also we have this history of Jewish Americans supporting the civil rights movement, so we feel a particular closeness to that. I think some of it is just is that education problem. We just are not well educated, and the media doesn't allow us to be well educated about what's really going on there, about the occupation of Palestine. Most people know that's a word that they don't even know exists.
Talk about your recent trip to Palestine and Israel and how you sort of stayed with the people and how you experienced.
The last time I was there was about a year ago, and every time I've gone, I've always been with Palestinian Christians. I've always experienced. I've gone to their olive farms. I've gone to worship with them. I've gone to the communities that they live in. But this time, one of the things that we did, which really touched me, was we actually, there's this big, huge 25-foot wall that Israel has constructed through many of the Palestinian communities. So farmers are separated from their olive groves, children are separated from the schools, people are separated from their churches by this horrible, ugly 25-foot wall, concrete wall with razor wire on the top. But in order to get into Jerusalem, most Palestinians are not allowed to live in Jerusalem. So in order to get into Jerusalem, even if you were born there or your parents were born there, if you live in Ramallah, which is a big Palestinian community out just outside of Jerusalem, you have to go through a checkpoint in order to get past the wall. And the checkpoint, that doesn't sound too horrible, but it's a huge anchor fenced chute, almost like the cattle had to go through in order to get into the stockyards, and were driven through and to get in the stockyards in Kansas City or in Chicago, where these people, they're surrounded by this anchor fence, and they have to go through this line in order to get into the point, then through a turnstile like in the New York City subways, and then you get to the point where you could see the soldier behind a bulletproof glass and hand your documentation that says you have the right to go into Jerusalem. You have to have all your bags checked. Sometimes this line can take hours in the morning just to go to work if you work in Jerusalem, or if you get sick and you need to go into the hospital, it can take hours, and children go through it, old people go through it, everybody goes through it. Can you imagine what it must feel like for a father to have their children watch this dehumanization each and every day in order to get to work or in order to take them to school? It's amazing.
You talked about President Obama will be taking a trip soon in Israel. What are some of the things that we can do?
I think it's really important for the African American community, for him to hear from the community that he grew out of, that Mrs. Obama grew out of, the faith community, to say, we're African American people of faith, and when you go to Israel next week, we want you to go to Beit Jala. Beit Jala is a Palestinian community right outside of Jerusalem. They have him going through, I haven't seen the itinerary, but someone was telling me after I spoke this morning that he's going to the grave of various Zionist leaders and whatnot. He needs to go to the Palestinian community too. He needs to see the Palestinian people. So what we should do is be in touch with them and say, we're the people who put you in office. We're the people who voted for you. We're the people who organized for you. We were the people who called our relatives, took our relatives to. We want you to go to Beit Jala and to see the Palestinian community in addition to seeing the Israeli community.
Talk a little bit about Sabeel and the faith work, maybe some opportunities for those who like to travel.
Sabeel, S-A-B-E-E-L, is a Palestinian kind of think tank organization. It's many years old. It's Palestinian theologians and writers and thinkers and religious leaders, and for many years they have worked to try to articulate from the Palestinian perspective what's going on there. And so one of the things that they do is they do itineraries for groups that are visiting the Holy Land. So if your church is thinking about taking a group, many churches go to the Holy Land. It's a wonderful opportunity to see where Jesus walked. I like Mark Braverman's words, to not only see where Jesus walked, it's important to see what Jesus saw. And if you go with Sabeel, you'll see what Jesus saw. You'll see occupation and oppression in a very real way. So be in touch with Sabeel if you want to take your group there, and they will connect you with Palestinian Christians. Yes, you'll also get a chance to visit the Jordan River and the Mount of Olives and all those wonderful places, but you'll get much, much more.